The primary point of the article was to place into context the wide array of environmental and public health and economic impacts associated with the industrial scale production of food animals. This is not mom and pop agriculture. These are not your urban gardens and small scale sustainable producers, which is what I think perhaps a lot of people think of when they think of agriculture. They're not really understanding that this is an industrial process where animals are confined in very small space. There is an incredible accumulation of waste, and that accumulation of waste creates health problems for the animals that then have to be addressed through the use of antibiotics. It creates health problems for the people who work in those facilities, and it creates a waste management problem that also needs to be accounted for. Perhaps the best known regulatory vehicle for dealing with livestock operations is the Clean Water Act. And the Clean Water Act specifies that CAFOs, concentrated animal feeding operations, are point sources that are subject to regulation in the same way that other point sources are, whether it be a pipe that's discharging effluent from a manufacturing process or from a municipal wastewater treatment plant. Over time, the statute has been modified, has been amended to exempt agricultural stormwater runoff and to exempt what's called irrigation return flows. And that has then created the opportunity for a lot of producers who are causing very severe environmental and water quality related impacts to be able to kind of navigate through and say, well, there's ambiguity here. We're agriculture, and so therefore anything that comes off of our fields is exempt as agricultural stormwater discharge. And so that becomes a gap that the industrial scale production is able to exploit, and those associated waste management problems and environmental problems end up unchecked. The whole context of the article is the question of sustainability and what does it mean to be sustainable if you're talking about the production of food animals. And the reason I posit that question is twofold. One, sustainability is a hot topic right now. Everybody wants to be sustainable. Businesses want to be sustainable. They want to be sustainable in terms of their business model, but they also want to be green. You know, they want consumers to feel good about what it is that they're buying and what that company is selling. And so I think it's an important question to ask. What does sustainable mean? It's not something that's defined in the Food, Drug, and Cosmetics Act. It's not something that's defined in any of these different statutes. All we can do is try to figure out what the footprint is, what the impacts are, and whether or not we think, you know, that meets our individual concept of sustainability. But a lot of companies have jumped on that bandwagon, and so there are now the industry is awash in corporate sustainability reports and pages of annual reports and pages on websites that are devoted to the green practices that a company will employ. And I think it's really important for the consumer, right, to understand what it is that is behind that curtain of sustainability. How are these animals actually being raised? What is being done with the waste that is produced? What is being done with the mortalities? How are the laborers actually treated in this process? And that's something that gets glossed over in these reports of sustainability. And so I want to address that question openly, and then I also want to pull back the curtain to say these are the practices that we're confronting, and let the consumer decide what constitutes sustainability. I don't think that what the industry is currently doing is sustainable. Certainly not for communities, certainly not for the farmers who are mortgaged to the hilt. Maybe it's sustainable for a few people who are making a profit off of this, but it's not sustainable in any other sense of the word.